today, we're even going to start laying on our backs. I'm going to roll up into our little ball, close our eyes, hug our knees into our chests. Take a few deep breaths here. And just check in with how we are feeling right now. We'll release those legs. We'll bring our feet together, open our knees wide, and just lower down onto our backs into a reclined bound angle pose. So allowing those knees to fall on either side. After a couple of breaths, hopefully we start to feel those hips relax a little bit. Just let those knees fall open. Now, gently bring those knees together. And again, let's bring them in to our chest. Roll up again. And exhale, let's place those feet down onto our mats right underneath of our butts. Shoulders come down, tuck the tail. Inhale, let's lift the hips up into a little bridge. And exhale, we'll lower down. Knees come in. And then feet will come back down. Inhale, lift up into our bridge. And exhale down. And the knees will come in, roll up into our ball. One more time. Exhale, lower those feet down. Tuck the tail. Inhale, lift our hips. Hold this bridge for a couple breath cycles. And then we'll lower down again. Bring those knees into our chest. Roll up into our ball. Now let's release that left leg. We'll hold the right knee tight, tight, tight into our body. And then we'll release and bring that knee across into a little twist here. Nothing super intense. We're just warming up that back a little bit. And then we'll come back to the center, both knees in, roll up into our ball. Release the right leg, hug the left into our body. And then release and guide that right across into a little twist. And then we'll come back to the center. One more time, roll up into our ball. And then we'll hold on to the back of our legs and just begin to rock and roll all the way up to seated. Good. We'll bring those legs out in front of us. Give them a little shake if we need. Walk those sitting bones back behind us so we're beginning to tilt that pelvis forward. Hands will come to our thighs. Chest is nice and proud, and then we'll just wiggle those fingers forward toward our shins, towards our toes, bringing the chest with us as we just do a little forward fold here. And then slowly come back up. Inhale as we lengthen, and then exhale again. Just wiggle those fingers forward. And then we'll come back up. Nice and tall. And then exhale one more time. Wiggle those fingers forward. Bring the chest forward. Utilize our breath. And then we'll slowly come back up. We'll bring our legs in. Just do a little easy cross-legged position here. Finding those sitting bones, pull the shoulders back and down. We'll take this right arm and I'm going to reach back behind us. See if we can touch around to the left side. We can even use that left hand to hold it in place. And then we'll lower the ears over toward our head, over toward the left side. Opening up in this right shoulder and neck area. And then we'll release that right arm and we'll take it all the way around in front of our body. Again, using that left arm or hand to help keep it in place. And then think about this right shoulder. Drop it away from our ear. Excellent. And then releasing. Give ourselves a wiggle. Then we'll take that left arm, reach it back behind. See if we can touch that right hip. You can use the right hand to keep it in place. Lengthen in the neck and then lower the head over to the right. And then we can release that hand. Head comes back up to the center. Go all the way around with that left arm. Capture it with the right. And then lower that left shoulder away from the ear. Nice tall spine. Open the shoulders back behind us. Reach with these left fingers across. And then we'll release those arms, give those fingers a wiggle. Inhale, we'll lift the hands up high. And then exhale, big circles back behind us, placing the hands on the floor, opening up the chest, and then we can put those feet out in front of us, about hip width apart. And to lift the chest, press into the hands and feet. We'll lift the hips into a reverse tabletop. And then with our breath 3 times, we'll exhale, lower the butt down. Inhale, lift it back up. And exhale, lower. Inhale up. And exhale down. Last time, inhale up. Exhale down. Placing that butt all the way down onto our mats. We can cross our legs again. Hands will come in front of us and we'll walk ourselves forward, rolling over those shins and come into our normal tabletop. Fingers are wide. Knees are underneath of our hips. Pressing into those hands, opening up the shoulders behind us, and then we'll tuck that tail just a little bit. Breathing into our bellies. Good. And then we'll inhale, lifting the right hand and pressing back the left foot into a spinal balance. Keeping this back strong and flat as we do this. And then exhale, lowering back down to our tabletop. Inhale, left hand, right foot. Reaching with the fingers, pressing with the heel. And exhaling back down. And now with our best efforts, we're going to switch back and forth without moving in our back very much. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, lower back down. So we're only moving in that shoulder and hip joint. And exhaling down. Inhaling, right hand, left foot. Exhaling down. This should feel really hard. Last one. Left hand, right foot. And back down. Good. Now let's move that spine a little with an exhale into a cat. And inhale, cow. Good. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. And then back to that neutral spine. Hands are going to come out in front of us just a little bit. Right leg reaches back behind us. And then we're going to take a big step forward to the outside of our hands for a lizard pose. Little lunge here, sinking our hips down, lifting our hearts, settling those hips. Glancing forward, Good. And now on our next exhale, we'll just walk those hands backwards. Hips will go above the left knee. Our right toes will point up to the sky for a half split. So our hands can come to our thigh or to our shin if we have a block, or we can reach the floor. We could use our credenza if we have one. Good. Inhale, we'll come forward back into that lizard pose. And exhale, working backwards. Inhale, coming forward. Exhale, back. Good. Inhaling, let's come forward. Our left hand will stay on the floor, sinking this left hip down in toward the mat, lifting up the right hand, little spinal twist here. And exhale, hands come back down to the mat, keeping our hips and feet where they are. We're going to walk those hands around to the left. Good. And then back around toward the top of our mat. One more breath here in our lizard. And then when we're ready, we'll step that leg back. We can even go all the way back to a child's pose. Arms stay out in front of us, hips go back. Relax in the spine and in the hips. Good. And then inhale, we'll come up, hands are out in front of us just a little bit, reaching that left leg back behind us, and then stepping it all the way forward. The outside of that left hand. Wiggle and settle our way into our lizard. Good. And then slowly, let's walk those hands backwards. Find our way into our half split. Think about pointing our tailbone back behind us instead of underneath of us. Want to stick our butt out. Our chin is working toward our shin. Good. And then inhale, let's come forward. And exhale, we'll work backwards. Two more times. Inhale, forward. And back. One more time. Inhale, forward. Exhaling back. Let's stay here for a full breath cycle. Good. And then inhale, we'll come forward. Find that lizard pose again. And then once we've got that lunge, let's lift up the left hand for a spinal twist, sinking that right hip down in toward the mat, pressing into the right hand to keep the shoulder active as we reach with those left fingers. exhale, we'll bring that hand back down. Keeping everything below the equator where it is, we're just going to walk those hands around to the right, reaching across our body with that left hand, sinking the hips down, lengthening in that spine. And we'll come back to the center. And then slowly we'll take that left leg back behind us, setting back into our child's pose, reaching the fingers out in front of us, sinking the hips back, melting our heart down in toward our mats. And then from here with our arms, if we would like, we can open up the hands up toward the sky. Or we can bring them into a prayer configuration and pull them back toward the back of our neck. Good. And then arms will come out in front of us again. We'll wiggle those fingers so that our hips come over our knees again. Hands will come underneath of our shoulders for tabletop. From here, we'll inhale, lift up the right hand again. And then exhale, let's thread the needle, bringing that arm underneath the left arm, lowering our right shoulder onto our mats, resting our head. Our left arm can reach out in front of us, or we can place it on top of that right hand to help open up the shoulders a little bit more. Think about our hips as well, staying just above the knees. We don't want to shift those too much. Stay here for one more breath. And then we'll slowly unwind and find our way back to tabletop. And then finding that neutral spine, we'll lift up the left hand, reaching the fingers nice and high. And then when we're ready, threading the needle on the other side, lowering that left shoulder down. Inhaling here. Staying for the exhale. And we'll come back to our tabletop. Good. Now let's tuck those toes underneath of our feet, and we'll bring those hips backwards. Lifting the chest, open up in our arches, tuck the tail, maybe begin to feel a little bit of a quad stretch. Good. And then hips will come up off of the heels. I prefer to keep my toes tucked. You can flatten them if you would like. We're going to bring our hands behind our low back into little fists to support that low back as the hips come forward, the chest comes up, the shoulders go back. Begin to look up toward the sky. If we're happy here, we stay here. If we would like, we can lower that right hand down to the right heel. Then we can lift the left hand up toward the sky or up above our head for half camel. Good. And then slowly we'll release. We'll come all the way back up. And we'll just lower those hips back down to our heels for a breath. Unfortunately, we can't get too comfortable because we got to do the other side. So when we're ready, inhale, we'll lift those hips up. Hands will come back behind our back, just above our butt, low back area. Pulling the shoulders back, hips comes forward, chest lifts. Lower that left hand down to the heel. Lift up the right if we would like. If we get to a point and we don't like it, then we don't do it. We come back. One more breath. And then we'll slowly come up. We can soften those feet. Hips come down to our heels and come all the way down into a child's pose. Tuck the head round in the back. And then we'll swish our feet over to the left. Our butt will come down. We'll come back to seated. And we'll bring this right leg forward into deer pose. So our right leg will be parallel to the top of our mat, flexing that right foot. Left leg is even with the side of the mat and then parallel to this right shin. Turn our chest toward the top of our mat. Hands will come out in front of us. Take a breath or two here. Let those hips get used to where they're at. And then if we would like, we can lower ourselves down into a bit more of a fold if we like. And inhaling, we'll help ourselves back up. Keeping this right leg where it is, we'll bring the left leg out in front of us, holding behind the thigh or behind the calf. We'll just stretch that buddy out, even if we have a little bit of a bend in the knee, but we can still feel that hamstring stretch. That's what we're looking for here. So it doesn't always have to be perfectly straight to be getting the benefit of the pose. We have to listen to what our body is telling us. Good. And then we'll release that leg, bring it on back behind us again. And now what we'll do is we'll wiggle those toes back a little bit farther. So we're opening up our knees a little bit wider. We're still keeping our shoulders and our hips, though, pointing forward. So as we wiggle that leg back behind us, we're not taking the hip with us, just the foot and the leg. Inching our way into pigeon pose if we haven't already figured that out. When we get to that point, we may have to situate ourselves a little bit more by lifting that right hip up off of the ground. Hands are out in front of this right shin. Our left foot and leg is soft behind us. Do one more big breath cycle here. Inhaling, completely filling our lungs, our belly, our hips. And then exhale, slowly releasing all of that breath. Maybe whatever residual tension we have. And then on our next inhale, we'll gently walk those hands back underneath of our shoulders if they are not already there. And then we can sit back onto that right hip. Bring the left leg forward. Give ourselves a little bit of a wiggle and a shake. Good. Then we'll move on to the other side. So we'll place that left shin down in front of us. We'll take the right leg back. We can use our yoga mat as a guide. We can match the top of our mat to the front shin, the side of our mat to our back shin. We'll turn those hips forward, hands come out in front of that left shin. Take a couple of breaths here again. Find where we're at. Let those hips settle in. And then we can walk the hands out and begin to fold when we're ready. One more breath here. And then we'll slowly raise ourselves up. We'll take this right leg out in front of us. Little stretch here. Hold behind the thigh or the knee. We can hold the calf or our toes. And then we'll release that leg. We'll let it come all the way back again, and then we'll begin to wiggle that foot back behind. Think about keeping this right hip forward. We can even put our hand there so that we know that it's staying put. And we'll just take our time, wiggle our way back there. May take several breaths. And then when it's back there all the way, we'll begin to shift our way into pigeon by lifting up off of that right thigh or hip, or the left thigh and hip. We're going to bring this right hip forward, flexing this left foot. And then we'll gradually find our way into the version of pigeon that we are at today on this side. Let's stay here for 2 more breaths. When we're ready, we'll help ourselves back up to our hands. We'll sit down onto that left hip. We'll bring that right leg around. Give ourselves a wiggle and a shake. We need to do some little windshield wipers, or just take a minute to be still. Good. And then we'll bring those legs out in front of us again. Walk those sitting bones back underneath of us. Toes are pointing to the sky. And then we're hinging at the hips, so spilling over in that pelvis. Inhale, hands can come up high. And then exhale, forward folding here. Take note as to how it feels compared to at the very beginning of our practice. Hopefully it feels better. Hopefully it does not feel worse. That would be very sad. One more breath. And then we'll slowly help ourselves back up. We'll bend those knees, bring them into our chest, and we'll rock onto our backs, rolling up into our little ball here. And from here, we'll just lower those feet down by our butts, bending the knees. And now we can hold our ankles if we would like, or we can just let those hands find the floor next to us. And we're going to begin to lift the hips up to the sky into a bridge. And now, lowering one vertebra at a time, coming down. We'll bring the knees into our chest. And then we'll release the left leg, holding the right nice and tight. And then we'll slowly release and guide that right knee across our body into a spinal twist. Hopefully this feels familiar. Right arm comes out to the side. Left arm can come out to the side, or it can touch that right knee. Just continue to guide it and encourage the leg across the body, not force. Good. And then we'll come back to the center. Hold that right knee again into our chest. We'll bend the left knee, placing the foot onto the ground, and we'll cross the right foot over the left knee. Open up that right knee away from our body. You can even just touch and encourage. And now what we're going to do is we're going to twist again, taking both legs over to the left, but opening up that right knee away from us. Maybe getting the front of that hip, maybe a little to the side. And then unwind, releasing both knees come into our chest. Releasing the right leg, hugging the left into our body. And then we'll guide that buddy across to the right for our spinal twist here. Good, and then let's unwind, bring that left knee back into our chest, bending the right, placing the foot on our mats, and then we'll cross that left ankle over the right knee, opening up that left leg away from us. Then once that's nice and open, we'll just let those feet, the foot and the knee, fall down toward the right. Good. And then we'll unwind, release, both knees come into our chest. And then we'll release the knees, open them wide, soles of the feet come together, and we'll return from whence we began in our reclined bound angle. Take notice to how our hips are feeling now that we have gone full circle. Take one more big breath here. And then we'll slowly close those knees back together. Bring them in towards us. One more inhale here. And then exhale into our Shavasana. Legs are out long. Arms come to our sides. We close our eyes. We soften throughout our body. And we give ourselves this time to just be still and quiet. If we would like to stay in our Shavasana, by all means, take all the time you need. If we are ready, we'll deepen our breath. Wiggle our fingers and our toes. We gently bring ourselves back into our bodies and into our space. Bend our knees and bring them in towards us. We'll rock on over to one side. We'll help ourselves up to seated. Bring our hands together at our hearts. Lower our heads and give ourselves thanks for all of the gifts that we just gave us. We'll make sure that we take a second or two throughout our day to just be grateful for all that is around us. I thank you so much for joining me, for allowing me to help you through your practice. I thank you for sharing your time and your energy and your dedication. I wish you all a very, very happy and light and positive day. The light and the divine in me recognizes and respects the light and the divine in each of you. And when we are together, whether physically or virtually, we are one. Namaste.